Hey everyone, my name is Matt, and I am the youth and family pastor at Cornerstone Church in Marshfield. I'm here today with your Cornerstone Connection, a daily devotional. So today, in our Bible reading plan, we begin the letter to the Colossian church that Paul wrote in the New Testament. And so we'll be in Colossians chapter 1, and I'm actually going to take us right to verse 15, and I'm going to read through verse 20, and here's why. Because if I had somebody walk up to me, and they were to say, Matt, who is Jesus, and what he has done? I think there in Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 through 20, Paul answers that question in such a beautiful and accurate and powerful way. And this is a section of text that I have used so many times in teaching God's word, but also in reminding myself, Matt, this is who Jesus is. Matt, this is what Jesus has done for you. And so, friends, let me read verse 15 through 20 to us, and then just point out a couple of things. Here's what Paul writes to the Colossian church, but he also writes to all of us, his readers today. He says, He, that being Jesus, He is the image of the invisible God. He's the firstborn over all creation. For by Him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things were created by Him and for Him. He is before all things. And in Him all things hold together. And He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything He might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all His fullness dwell in Him, and through Him to reconcile, to restore the relationship to Himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through His blood shed on the cross. Man, that's just so refreshing to hear. Every single time that I read it, I'm just reminded of who I serve, who my God is, who Jesus is. And then at the end of it, how Paul sticks in there what has been done for us, what Jesus has done for us through the shedding of His blood on the cross and restoring that relationship that we were created to have with God from the beginning. Friends, in our student ministry, Cornerstone Student Ministries, on Wednesday nights, we began the school year by talking about two main things. The first being belonging, having this sense of belonging and how important that is. And then we've just started another series in which we're talking about purpose. And just last week, I took our students to this text, Colossians 1, and I highlighted verse 16. I said, students, you have to hear this, because some of you are sitting in this room, and some of you might feel like you don't have a sense of belonging anywhere. You might not feel like you have a sense of belonging at home, at school, or maybe here in the youth group. That could be true of you. I hope it's not, but it could be true of you. And some of you feel like, man, I don't feel like I have a sense of purpose. You might wake up each day and you look in the mirror and you go, why am I here? Why did God exist me? Do I even have a purpose? Is there anything for me to do here in this world? And so this lack of a sense of belonging, this lack of purpose, can lead to a lot of depression, can lead to a lot of anxiety and anger and just feelings of nervousness and worry and all of that. And so I took them Colossians 1, verse 16, that we already read. And I said, students, if you don't take anything else from tonight's message, I want you to hear this clear as day. Okay? Because this is God speaking to us through Paul's pen. It says, for by Him, that being Jesus, for by Him all things, that includes you and me and all of creation, and the things, Paul says, things in heaven and on earth, things visible, things that we can actually see and touch and taste and all of that, but also the invisible, the things we can't. He says whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, and he goes back to it, all things. And he says all things were created by Him, that's number one, and all things were created for Him. And I love that in this one verse, God makes it crystal clear to every single reader of Colossians 1, verse 16, that you were created by God, meaning from the beginning of time, you belong to God. You are His creation. Yes, sin has fractured that relationship and it needs to be restored through Christ. But you belong to Him. You are His and He is yours. And you can restore that relationship by receiving what God has done to restore it through Christ. So you were created by Him, you belong to Him. But then Paul says you're also created for Him. And what does that mean? That means you have an ultimate purpose. Even though many days you might wake up and feel like, I'm not accomplishing anything. Guess what? Even though you might feel that way, you have a purpose no matter where you are, what you're doing, and why you're there. You have a purpose, and that is to glorify God. God has given us a mission to love Him and to love others, and we can do that no matter where we find ourselves. So friends, if you're struggling today, and you wonder, man, do I fit here? Do I belong here? Do I have any sort of purpose? Does God have a purpose for me? Is there a God? Maybe you're just wrestling with some of these questions. May Paul's words in Colossians 1 bring you comfort and also remind you, gosh, you belong to God. And God has a purpose for you. Have a great day, friends. We'll see you next time on the Cornerstone Connection.